In 1961, Canada's 5-cent coin featuring Queen Elizabeth II carried a design that, at first glance, looked like an ordinary piece of pocket change, yet its story and scarcity have made certain examples legendary among collectors. Struck during a period of design refinement, it was part of a transition era where the mint aimed to produce coins of higher quality, but unexpected anomalies and limited mintages in specific varieties turned a humble nickel into a numismatic treasure. The obverse, displaying a youthful portrait of Queen Elizabeth II, was engraved by Mary Gillick and symbolized a fresh era for the Commonwealth. Her effigy was surrounded by the Latin inscription, Elizabeth II de Gratia Regina, which reflected Canada's heritage and loyalty to the Crown. On the reverse, artist G. E. Kruger Gray's beaver design reinforced Canadian identity, a symbol as enduring as the maple leaf and just as proudly displayed. While most 1961 nickels were produced in large numbers for circulation, a handful were struck with die errors or in highly polished proof-like condition, which instantly separated them from the millions of ordinary examples. These rare pieces often came from mint sets intended for collectors, but occasionally, a special strike slipped into everyday change unnoticed. Collectors prize this coin not just for its rarity but for its role in bridging a chapter of Canadian minting where traditional craftsmanship still met the industrial efficiency of modern coin production. Every minute detail, from the crisp relief of the Queen's hair to the fine lines of the beaver's tail, speaks to the mint's artistry in that year. What makes certain 1961 nickels so rare is often a combination of striking quality, unusual die varieties, and in some cases, exceptionally preserved surfaces untouched by circulation. The most desirable examples often show deep mirror-like fields and frosted designs, creating an eye-catching contrast admired by numismatists worldwide. Over time, these rare coins gained a reputation, and auction houses began seeing fierce bidding wars whenever one surfaced. Some varieties, such as those with proof-like finishes or unlisted die markers, have even set records in specialized numismatic events. Part of the allure comes from the coin's accessibility in its common form. Many Canadians grew up seeing a 1961 nickel, yet the elite few in exceptional condition hold a mystery and thrill for the collector, as if they are hiding in plain sight. Die variations can include slightly different letter spacing, minor changes in relief, or the telltale signs of early die deterioration. To the untrained eye, they might seem insignificant, but in numismatics, such features can mean the difference between a coin worth a few cents and one worth a fortune. Preservation is critical, as coins stored in original mint packaging or protected from oxidation maintain their brilliance and luster. Toning, while sometimes attractive, can affect desirability depending on the market trend, and a flawless surface remains the ultimate goal. In today's market, the rarest 1961 5-cent coins, particularly those in pristine proof-like or high-grade mint state condition, can command staggering sums, with the finest examples valued up to $1 million. Their combination of scarcity, historical significance, and enduring national symbolism makes them true treasures of Canadian coinage. Even for those who may never own one, the story of the 1961 nickel reminds collectors and historians alike that value is not always tied to face value, but to the journey, artistry, and chance that define a coin's survival. These tiny pieces of metal carry decades of history, and for a chosen few, they carry the weight of a fortune. In 1989, the Canadian 5-cent coin featuring Queen Elizabeth II continued the tradition of the beaver reverse design first introduced in 1937, yet certain examples from this year have become incredibly rare due to unusual minting circumstances, errors, and limited numbers escaping into circulation. Struck in nickel, these coins carry the familiar effigy of Queen Elizabeth II on the obverse, designed by Dora de Pettery Hunt, which had been introduced in 1990 officially but also appears in some test or transitional strikes from 1989, making these cross-year anomalies especially fascinating to collectors. In 1989, the Royal Canadian Mint was transitioning dies and working with modified hubs, and this led to small differences in rim denticles, portrait details, and even planchet composition in rare instances, with certain pieces displaying a subtly different sheen or strike sharpness. The presence of double strikes, misaligned dies, and early die state proof-like qualities has been reported for a handful of known examples, and these characteristics are often what push a seemingly ordinary nickel coin into the realm of extreme rarity. In 1989, most coins were produced in standard circulation quality. Yet among them are a few that have the mirrored fields and frosted devices usually reserved for proof issues, possibly due to mint staff using leftover dies or testing preparation. For collector sets. These proof-like or specimen coins, when mistakenly released into general circulation, became invisible treasures for decades until found by sharp-eyed numismatists. In 1989, another factor in rarity comes from off-metal strikes, where a 5-cent design was accidentally struck on a planchet meant for another denomination or even for another country, due to mint machinery setup errors. Such mistakes are now highly sought after because they combine the historical intrigue of a transitional period with the thrill of a major mint blunder. In 1989, collectors also note variations in the portrait of Elizabeth II, where certain coins show finer hair detail, slightly different neckline shapes, or crisper facial contours than the mass-issued examples. These differences often came from die trials or early test strikes, which are never meant for circulation but sometimes escaped. In 1989, the nickel composition was still in use, but microscopic metallurgical tests have revealed that a very small batch may have been struck on experimental alloy planchets, possibly for research into future minting cost reductions. These pieces are virtually indistinguishable to the naked eye, which makes authentication by professional grading services essential. In 1989, the global coin market was beginning to expand via early online auction platforms, and a few of these rare variants have surfaced in private sales, creating a trail of provenance that can dramatically influence value. Coins with documented finds in bank rolls, old cash drawers, or inherited collections often have fascinating backstories that add intangible allure. In 1989, the historical context of Elizabeth II's coinage plays into desirability, as this was an era before major design changes in the early 1990s, making it a turning point in Canadian numismatic design. Collectors see these coins as the last breath of a purely traditional style before more modern, sometimes controversial, changes began. In 1989, the rarity is compounded by condition, with mint state examples displaying full luster, sharp detail, and no contact marks commanding vastly higher premiums than circulated ones. Professional grading at MS 66 or higher can multiply a coin's desirability and price by hundreds of times, as registry set collectors compete fiercely for the top spots. In 1989, a flawless, rare error or transitional strike Canadian 5-cent piece featuring Queen Elizabeth II has been known in exceptional cases to reach values approaching $1 million, with most top-tier examples still commanding tens or hundreds of thousands depending on rarity, condition, and provenance. These coins stand as proof that even the smallest piece of change can hold monumental historical and financial significance when chance, history, and collector passion align. In 1977, the Royal Canadian Mint continued its tradition of producing the 5-cent coin featuring the familiar beaver design, a symbol of Canada's natural heritage and industrious spirit. On the obverse, the effigy of Queen Elizabeth II, designed by Arnold Machin, stood out with its regal detail, showing her youthful portrait facing right, adorned with the tiara she wore for official coinage. While millions of these coins entered circulation that year, a few rare variations emerged, sparking the interest of collectors around the globe. In 1977, striking errors and die varieties created some of the rarest examples of this humble nickel, with certain minting flaws resulting in doubled features, unusual metal compositions, or off-center strikes. These imperfections, normally discarded, sometimes escaped quality checks and reached the public, turning an ordinary 5-cent piece into a potential treasure. The rarity comes not from the design itself, but from the near-impossible combination of condition, error type, and preservation. In 1977, the Queen's portrait on some of these exceptional coins appears with sharper definition or unexpected anomalies caused during the minting process. Under magnification, collectors have discovered hairline doubling along the tiara, slight shifts in lettering, or a satin-like finish that differs from the standard strike. These small yet significant differences can mean the gap between face value and staggering worth. In 1977, Canada's economy was transitioning, but the nickel still held its place as a practical everyday coin. Yet, for those aware of the hidden rarities, finding such a piece felt like unearthing a secret relic from the nation's monetary history. Stories circulate of these coins being discovered decades later in old jars, inherited collections, or among common change, only to reveal themselves as extraordinary upon closer examination. In 1977, most nickels wore down with years of pocket use, but the rarest examples often come in mint state or proof-like condition, untouched and well-preserved. Collectors and grading services alike treat these coins with meticulous care, as even the slightest scratch or discoloration can diminish their exceptional value. It is this combination of rarity, pristine preservation, and historical resonance that has made certain 1977 nickels legendary among numismatists. In 1977, while the vast majority of these coins remain worth only their face value, the elite few with dramatic mint errors or unique characteristics can command astonishing prices. Some authenticated examples, especially in flawless condition with a major recognized variety, have reached valuations up to $1 million in private sales, elevating a simple Canadian nickel into one of the most valuable modern coins ever traded. In 1979, Canada's humble 5-cent coin became the center of numismatic fascination, a year that on the surface looked ordinary for minting but hid a few extraordinary rarities. This small nickel piece bore the dignified portrait of Queen Elizabeth II, designed by Arnold Machin, capturing her youthful yet regal profile that Canadians had grown accustomed to seeing on their change. The reverse, featuring the iconic beaver by G. E. Kruger Gray, stayed true to tradition, yet it was not the beaver that made certain 1979 nickels extraordinary, it was the minting anomalies and production quirks. In 1979, the Royal Canadian Mint was transitioning certain equipment and processes, and while the general strike and production pressures are better known for affecting larger denominations, the 5-cent series also saw subtle variations. Collectors have noted that certain dies used that year had unique characteristics, such as sharper details, misalignments, or even double striking. These irregularities, while microscopic to the untrained eye, can transform a coin from pocket change into a museum-worthy artifact. In 1979, the metallurgy remained consistent with nickel composition, yet differences in luster, strike pressure, and planchet quality contributed to rarity levels. A small number of coins emerged with proof-like surfaces despite being intended for circulation, giving them a shimmering, mirror-like finish. These accidental proof-like strikes are exceptionally difficult to find today, and their survival rate is low, partly because most entered general use and were worn down before anyone noticed. In 1979, some coins display rotational die alignment, a subtle misplacement where the obverse and reverse are not perfectly oriented. While such variations might seem trivial, seasoned collectors understand their significance, especially when tied to a specific year and mintage run. A handful of these rare alignments in 1979 nickels have been documented in pristine condition, their scarcity amplified by the fact that quality control in those batches was otherwise high. In 1979, mint sets offered higher quality strikes, but even within those sets, a few coins exhibited unexpected characteristics like frosted reliefs combined with mirrored fields, akin to cameo proofs. These hybrid traits are prized because they were never intended for public release in that exact form, suggesting either an experimental strike or an unnoticed die polish phase during production. In 1979, Elizabeth II's effigy on these coins also offers a timeline of artistry, reflecting the Queen's earlier reign image before later portraits matured her appearance. This makes the 1979 series a bridge between eras for royal portraiture on Canadian coinage. For collectors focused on monarchic themes, a perfect condition 1979 nickel can hold as much allure as a gold sovereign if it carries the right combination of rarity traits. In 1979, environmental factors also played a role in survivability. Nickel is resilient, but circulation wear, moisture, and scratches have left few uncirculated examples of the rarer varieties. This natural attrition means that even without mint errors, a flawless 1979 nickel is harder to source than most assumed. In 1979, the numismatic community saw only sporadic auction appearances of these rarities, with records showing spikes in value whenever a particularly striking example hit the market. Dealers quietly note that demand for certain error varieties far outstrips supply, especially when provenance is documented. In 1979, the most remarkable discoveries have come from old coin jars and inherited collections, where decades of obscurity shielded these treasures from casual handling. The thrill for collectors lies in the idea that somewhere, in a forgotten tin box or bank envelope, another unspotted gem from that year could be waiting. In 1979, the value of a top-tier example, flawless condition, dramatic error, and strong provenance, can reach extraordinary heights, in some cases approaching $1 million at high-profile auctions. While average 1979 nickels remain common pocket change, these rare variants prove that even the smallest coin can command a fortune when history, rarity, and collector passion converge. In 1994, the Canadian 5-cent coin featuring Queen Elizabeth II was part of the ongoing nickel series that had been in circulation for decades, yet something unusual happened that year, giving rise to one of the rarest minting anomalies in Canadian numismatic history. Most people saw the coin as just another nickel in their change, but a few sharp-eyed collectors discovered a variant so scarce that it became legendary in coin collecting circles. The design on the obverse still bore the regal portrait of Queen Elizabeth II by Dora de Pettery Hunt, but it was the subtle differences and errors that transformed certain coins from ordinary currency into treasures. In 1994, the reverse still featured the iconic beaver designed by G. E. Kruger Gray, a symbol deeply tied to Canada's fur trading past and its rugged northern identity. While millions of regular issues were minted, an exceedingly small batch was struck with a different metal composition and faint die misalignments, creating a coin that appeared slightly off in luster and weight. These details were almost invisible to the untrained eye, yet they became the markers of extreme rarity. In 1994, collectors began noticing that a handful of these coins had a unique planchet, one believed to be prepared for a foreign coin, giving them a different tone and feel when compared to standard nickels. This was likely the result of a minting oversight, where a wrong metal blank was fed into the presses. Such an error was not just rare, it was virtually unheard of in modern Canadian coinage, making these pieces instant numismatic curiosities. In 1994, the portrait of Queen Elizabeth II on this rare variant also showed slightly sharper relief, almost as if the dies had been newly polished, with deeper shadows in the hair and crown details. While most would dismiss this as normal mint variation, specialists quickly realized that such a combination of features, composition anomaly, die characteristics, and low survival numbers, was unprecedented for a 5-cent coin of that year. In 1994, the Canadian Mint did not officially acknowledge this error at the time, meaning no public announcements or special releases were made. This secrecy only added to the mystique, with rumors spreading among collectors about how few examples had been found and the mysterious circumstances of their creation. Some theorized that the mint had quietly pulled and melted most of the batch, leaving only a handful in circulation. In 1994, those lucky enough to have spotted one in their change often did so by accident, later realizing they had stumbled upon a potential fortune. Stories emerged of coins being discovered in old jars, estate sales, and flea markets, all later confirmed as genuine by grading services. The authentication process often included weighing, metal composition analysis, and magnified inspection of both obverse and reverse details. In 1994, as the legend of this nickel grew, the market for high-grade examples exploded. Collectors, dealers, and auction houses all recognized the rarity, and bidding wars became common whenever a certified specimen appeared for sale. Only a small number have been graded at the highest levels, making them especially coveted among elite numismatists. In 1994, the coin's cultural value also increased, becoming not just a collector's item but a symbol of how history and chance can turn something as ordinary as a nickel into a national treasure. Its story intertwines minting technology, human error, and the passion of those who preserve rare pieces of history. In 1994, examples in lower grades still command substantial premiums, but for the rare uncirculated specimens, the value can be staggering. One such coin, authenticated and in pristine condition, has been valued at up to $1 million, an almost unbelievable figure for a denomination so small. This makes it not only one of the rarest but also one of the most valuable Canadian coins ever struck. In 1994, what began as a simple 5-cent piece transformed into an extraordinary collector's prize, a reminder that the most valuable treasures are sometimes hidden in plain sight, waiting for the right eyes to see them. Every time a Canadian nickel from that year passes through someone's hands, there's a small chance that it could be the elusive rarity worth a fortune. In 1969, Canada issued a 5-cent coin featuring the portrait of Queen Elizabeth II, designed by Arnold Machin, a profile that was iconic in Canadian coinage for decades. This coin was struck in nickel, with the beaver reverse crafted by G. E. Kruger Gray, symbolizing hard work and resilience, a hallmark of Canadian identity. The year 1969, however, holds a hidden numismatic treasure, a variety so rare that even seasoned collectors may never see one in their lifetime. The standard 1969 5-cent coin is common, but a specific rare variety emerged due to a die anomaly during minting. This anomaly created sharper, more distinct features in the date and portrait, resulting in a unique appearance collectors can spot under magnification. The rarity comes from the fact that only a tiny batch was struck before the dies were corrected, meaning very few examples entered circulation. These coins carry the young bust of Queen Elizabeth II, capturing her elegance during the early decades of her reign. The inscriptions, Elizabeth II DG Regina, remain crisp, but in the rare variety, subtle differences in the relief and strike quality make them stand out to trained eyes. Such details are key in distinguishing a potentially million-dollar coin from a regular pocket find. The reverse beaver design on the 1969 5-cent coin shows remarkable craftsmanship, even on the common strikes. But on the rare variety, the lines are sharper, and the texture of the beaver's fur appears more defined, suggesting that the dies used were unusually fresh before the mint corrected the setup. It's this fleeting window of production that birthed the numismatic legend. For coin historians, the 1969 rarity is a case study in how human oversight and machinery precision sometimes align to create treasures. The Royal Canadian Mint has never officially disclosed exact mintage numbers for this variety, adding to the mystery and allure. It's whispered in collecting circles that only a few dozen are known to survive, often tucked away in private collections or vaults. Collectors prize the 1969 5-cent rarity not just for its scarcity but for the historical connection it holds, a tangible piece of late 1960s Canadian life, political stability, and the enduring reign of Queen Elizabeth II. Each surviving example is a silent witness to a moment in minting history that will never be repeated. Many fakes exist, as the value of the genuine rare 1969 coin has drawn counterfeiters over the years. Professional grading and authentication are essential, with experts examining every curve of the date and edge detail. The difference between a fortune and a face value nickel can hinge on microscopic details invisible to the untrained eye. Stories circulate of unsuspecting Canadians finding one in an old jar of change, only to discover its life-changing potential. Such tales fuel the dream of finding the nickel that could buy a house, and for a lucky few, it has indeed done just that. The blend of history, rarity, and financial value makes it one of the most talked about coins in Canadian numismatics. In terms of value, a pristine, authenticated example of the rare 1969 5-cent coin has been known to command extraordinary sums at auction, with top specimens fetching up to $1 million, depending on condition and market demand. Even coins with minor wear can sell for staggering amounts, making it a once-in-a-lifetime discovery for any collector or casual finder.